but none in your dreams. Same tired eyes, same tired plans. A fire in your chest, but no place to land. Steps on a road that never bends. They smile when you lose, they wait for the end. Hope slips away, soft as the rain. The wheel keeps turning, but it don't change a thing. What if you want, but the path just folds? Speak your truth, but the air stays cold. They dig in deep, they won't feel the flame. You will never, never break that chain. Never break that chain. Lips full of salt, eyes full of gray. Don't reach too high, they always say. Your hands are young, your thoughts are wild. But time here runs like a fatherless child. The roots are thick, the roots are proud. They drink the sky, they choke the ground. You scream in waves, you break in vain. Still they whisper, keep things the same. Run if you want, but the path just folds. Speak your truth, but the air stays cold. They dig in deep, they won't feel the flame. You will never, never break that chain. Never break that chain. Born to move, built to stand. Freedom forged by working hands. Raise the flag, hold the line. We were made for this time. Got a strong spirit wide. We don't run, we don't hide. We are the stars of freedom, we carry the flame. We fight, we pray, we rise again. God bless the brave, God bless the land. We are the stars, we take a stand. Voices loud, hearts alive. Every stripe, every right. From the fields to city steel. We are truth, we are real. Bound by grace, built to last. We don't fear the storm we pass. We are the stars of freedom, we carry the flame. We fight, we pray, we rise again. God bless the brave, God bless the land. We are the stars, we take a stand.
The Freedom's Legacy Conference to celebrate America's 250th anniversary and renew the American spirit. It started right in Machias, where patriots banded together against a British Navy which was ordered to take their timber. Because of the local staunch resistance, the British began to refer to this area as the Hornet's Nest. You're invited to relive those moments with speakers like Bobby Charles, Robert Cross, and more. The Freedom's Legacy Conference, celebrating 250 years of American pride, kicks off January 31st of 2026. Doors open at 8 a.m., lunch is provided, but you have to bring your blazing American spirit. From darkness to light, from bondage to the greatest nation on earth. Join us to celebrate just how amazing it is to be an American.
You can face the shadows beyond the hate. You can break the silence beyond the silence. We can find the mercy. I will fight for it. I will fight for the day we walk as brothers. MAGA, MAGA lady, standing for the nation. Love is in our freedom. Listen to your heart. MAGA, MAGA lady, living with conviction. Feels just like the first time. Let me play my part. MAGA, MAGA lady, like there's no tomorrow. Take my heart, don't lose it. Listen to your heart. MAGA, MAGA lady, to know you is to love you. If you call me baby, I'll be always yours. America, answer freedom's call. Answer freedom's call. That land of courts and cameras where silence wears a grin now hides behind its power while truth wears thinner skin. But rise, ye bold Americans, and cross the watching sea. Rage, rage, rage on to free Britannia.
The manual bebop, it's just a truck.
I guess there was a reason why Grandpa didn't mind rolling the windows down.
Then I heard the voice of the Lord saying, "Whom shall I send? And who will go for us?" And I said, "Here am I. Send me."
We are now approaching lunar sunrise, and for all the people back on Earth, the crew of Apollo 8 has a message that we would like to send to you. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. And God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. And God saw the light, that it was good, and divided the light from the darkness. The time has come.
All right, all right. Yes, we made it through another week and we didn't get kidnapped, huh? Sucks for Maduro, right? Yeah? Okay, we gotta talk about Mohammed. Enough. Calm it down, okay? It's just a live stream. Anyway, we gotta talk about Mohammed here because he put the Democrats on notice. There's gonna be no more question asking in Lewiston anymore if those Democrats want to count on some favors from the Somali community. That's right. Old Mohammed rolled on up into the Lewiston City Hall and let him know what the business was. So here we go from the Unquirer. Now, I have the problematic hiccup in my brain that says uniquer, but that does not say uniquer. That says Unquirer, okay? That's my own personal mental tick. So if you hear me say uniquer here, it's because I'm dumb. Anyway, Mohammed gives a stark warning to Maine Democrats. Watch till the end. Somalians come out in droves demanding the city not investigate one of their own, Iman Osman. That's right, because they know if it starts with that guy, it's going to keep going, and pretty soon all of them are going to get implicated in something. Mohammed warns Democrats that if they continue down this road, their community, meaning the Somalians, will be forced to re-examine their political relationship. Somalians and mass leftists were the only ones who didn't want the city to investigate Iman Osman for lying about where he lived in order to get elected or his stolen gun charges. Now let's hear from Mohammed himself. Now he wrote a speech here, very, very interesting speech that he wrote. It was quick though. He wanted to keep it under the time limit. Let's run that from the top because I forgot to give you the audio. So let's run that from the top.
My name is Mohammed. I'm speaking today on behalf of the Somali community in Lewiston. Some of you sitting here today, we voted for you. We elected you to protect our community interests, not creating division or go after one elected member from our community. If this narrative continues, our community will be forced to re-examine our relationship or political relationship, including our relationship with the Democratic Party and who will be voting in the future. This is not a threat.
This is not a threat. I like how he just kind of puts that at the end. This is not a threat. I think he forgot to say it's a promise, but it's not a threat, right? It is a threat, though. It's very clear what he's saying here is that if you guys don't back off, we're not going to support you. Okay, thanks for bringing us here. Thanks for giving us all this free stuff and lots of money to do whatever we want to with, apparently. But if you guys keep pressing this investigation thing, well, we're just going to have to not support you. Now, I wonder, right, if we got some libertarian friends to go on down there and persuade those Somalis to give right-of-center thinking a try, I wonder how quickly the Democrats would be hopping on the bandwagon to have these fellows who may or may not be here legally escorted back to the good old Somalia that they come from. The Somalia that they're very proud of, by the way, but they don't live there. Curiouser and curiouser. But the Democrats themselves are on a, cat on a hot tin roof, I guess I would tell you. Not a woof. That's a dog noise. But a roof, most certainly. Because this is a big problem for them. As I just mentioned, they brought these people here and gave them everything in exchange, right? In exchange for voting for them. Now, the Somali leader here, Mr. Mohammed, he makes it abundantly clear that he knows what the Democrats want out of them and where to hurt them most is by revoking the Somali vote. Okay? Now, what that tells me is that they were told, ladies and gentlemen, they were told that this is where the bears shit in the woods. That if they want their free stuff, if they want their apartments given to them, if they want their cars, if they want their medical coverage, so on and so forth, they have to vote Democrat. Now, I'm promising you that was made clear to them. Maybe not in exact wording, but it was made clear to them that the blue team is where the good stuff comes from, is where the milk and honey comes from, okay? And the red team takes all that away and sends everybody home. But now, Mr. Mohammed feels as though the Somali community is not being respected enough. And so he must present to the Democrats where, hit the Democrats where it hits most by saying, well, we're going to revoke our vote.
Now, I don't know about you, but that sounds like gangster politics, right? That kind of sounds like you're not really here to help the country and moreover here to help yourself. But again, we can't blame the Somalis entirely for this, okay? We are taking them out of an environment, okay? They're taking them out of an environment where scarcity is dominant, where housing is a scarcity, where water is a scarcity. Curiously, though, everyone has a smartphone. I don't know where that came from, but everybody's got a brand new smartphone somehow. Don't have cars, don't have regular electricity, don't have a lot of housing, not a lot of farming going on there. But you know what? They all got smartphones. So that's neat, I guess. Got to stay connected for some reason. Either way, this is what's going on down in Lewiston. It has our good friends sweating pretty hard. Now, you might be wondering, Cider, Tom, how did you come up with this? Cider's a nickname for me, if you want to know. I'm Tom, just in case you didn't know. But you might be wondering, like, Tom, how do you know that they're sweating about this? Well, the Maine Wire sent our good friend John, I keep forgetting his name, and I'm so sorry. I don't mean to do this on purpose, but his first name is John. I know that for sure. Sent him out to, investigate what's going on. Do they have any opinion on this? And what do you know? We got some information, not from the horse's mouth, but moreover, what's going on with these people.
Good morning, John from the Maine Wire, Monday, January 5th, just about 8:30 a.m. This is the fourth time that I've come by Deca Deloc's apartment to get comments about the Gateway community scandal. It doesn't appear that Deca has been around. Her car has not moved in the 4 times that I've been here. You can see that her car does not have any salt on it, and any car driving right now would definitely have salt on it because of all the snow that we've had. I've gone to the door 4 times, asked for a comment. So Deca Deloc is involved in the Gateway community scandal and is under investigation by the Congress and the Oversight Committee led by James Comer. So has Deca left Maine? Has she left South Portland? Or has she even left the country? Janet Mills is not talking and Deca Deloc's not home. We'll keep digging.
And that's the Maine Wire going out there and making sure that all of us have some idea of what's happening in the state we live in, because we can't bother with the mainstream media telling us anything up from down. Because apparently they're too fixated on making sure they're reporting on places far and away from Maine rather than what's actually happening here, because that would be bad for the blue team, wouldn't you know? But I'm with John here, okay? I'm with John that she has most likely left the country. Deca Deloc is treated like a goddess, like a queen over in Somalia when she visits, okay? There's plenty of photos of her walking through a group of people where they part around her like the Red Sea, as though she is their messiah, okay? So most certainly she has left the state. If her car hasn't moved, most likely she has left the state. Now, again, now that these rumors are going around, now that people's asking questions, she's probably going to pop up to prove us all wrong that she's actually had super duper ultra COVID and can only just barely speak to tell us all we're racists, okay? So we'll have to wait and find out, but I'm of the belief that Miss Deca Deloc is no longer within the 207 area code and may or may not even be within the boundaries of the United States. I believe she's probably absconded with her efforts to become an American citizen fully fledged and instead returned to the sacred lands of Somalia where she is most dedicated, okay? Remember, she talked on and on about how important Somalia is, not how important Maine is, the place that sheltered her and offered her a place to be in light of the travesties happening in Somalia. But that is what it is. From that mess over to now Greenland. Now, Greenland is important to us. Hold on, I gotta pause this. Greenland is important to us, okay? And I'll get into that after this interview, okay? But Greenland's very important to Maine, and we should hear out what's exactly going on with this situation as clearly as possible. So that way we can probably get a clearer idea of our role to play in this Greenland becoming part of the United States or a territory, or Greenland becoming independent and becoming a full-fledged 100% trading partner with the U.S., okay? So let's listen to this interview from Great Britain News, okay?
Jorgen, what do you make of Jason Miller talking to GB News there, describing this talk of the US potentially taking over Greenland as just a silly distraction?
No, I think he has a good point, Mr. Trump, because we living in the Arctic, and the Arctic is so big, and also the Danish cannot handle that surveillance of the Arctic or also Greenland. The ship is around 40 years old, or they have a lot of problems. So that situation is not good for Trump. Because we are the front yard of U.S. and we are next to the Russia, and the Chinese want to go through the Northwest Passage in the winter, summer, and winter time now.
Okay, so if you're not familiar with the Danish, Greenlandic accent, let me help. Okay, so what he explained here is that they have 40-year-old ships that are stationed to act as some type of security for the Chinese and Russian vessels that are freely moving past Greenland to go terrorize the North Sea. We've heard about this from Ireland, where there's been a ghost ship, a Russian ship that comes through and just hangs out just at the edge of Irish waters, obviously scalping communications, scalping signals coming from Ireland and perhaps Great Britain, but it is a bit deep out there to try and pull a communication from there. And again, this is seen again with the Chinese that have also been present up here as Russia's allowed them passage through. And the Chinese are looking to build a hard base up there so that they can permanently station naval assets and seamen up there. Okay. So that's what this guy is explaining, is that there presently is not any measurable resistance that Greenland could put up to having Russia or China come in and establish a base. There's no way for them to even find out if they've already done it or not, in fact, because there just aren't enough people and not enough resources, and Denmark's not committing those resources to remain vigilant with Greenland's role in the security issues of the Arctic. Okay? Now, what Jorgen goes on to explain in this latter part of what he's trying to say here is that this is a good thing for Greenland to re-examine its relationship with Denmark. And while there's only something like 50,000 people living on like a couple of coastlines in Greenland, this is a very important space, not just because of its position for Arctic defense. It's right on Russia's doorstep. I mean, you'd have to be Canada to be any closer. And but it's also important because of the minerals that are being released from the permafrost in Greenland. Greenland's losing almost a mile of ice every year. It's just a massive thawing effect that's happening up there. You and I both know that this is a cycle, that the amount of plane rides you take or how many SUVs you drive have absolutely nothing to do with it. One volcano belches more crap into the atmosphere than humans have in our entire existence. So just, it's not us causing this. It's just the way the cosmic calendar works. And whatever's going to happen is going to happen as usual, okay? We don't have control over that, but we do have control with what we do with that opportunity, and Greenland presents a massive opportunity to be able to pull raw materials that we need here in the United States in order to free ourselves from our dependence on China. Okay? Now, Jorgen mentioned good old China again, right? Now, that means that Russia's allowing China to come through the Northern Pass. And if you don't know, that's the space way up north where it unthaws just north of Canada before you hop over the tippity top of the earth onto Russia's soil. That space right there is usually frozen solid. Historically, it's been an absolute nightmare to get through, but thanks to the temperature changes in the Arctic, there's more passage, there's more availability for passage as throughout the year, as the temperatures have sustained the ability to ice break longer than you have in previous years. And thus, the Northern Pass is becoming a very important asset as it allows things leaving things like Japan, Korea, China, to simply hop, skip, and a jump over the top of Canada and to be in Europe. Right there. It's that simple. A lot of people forget that the Earth is round in the sense that it has a top and a bottom. We don't think about the top and the bottom too often. We think about the bottom a little more than we probably should because we think some kind of ancient civilization is down there on this invisible globe. By the way, I'm miming it. But down on the bottom of the globe, we think there's some crazy civilization down there. We think about that more than the northern one, where there is a crazy civilization called Russia. Okay? I don't hate Russians, right? I know it's very popular to do that right now, but I don't hate Russians. But I acknowledge that they are a a kind apart from your American or European fellows. The Russians have a very aggressive idea with foreign policy. Not that we don't, of course, not that we don't. But that is what Jorgen's talking about here. And most of the interview just sort of ping-pongs back and forth over whether or not this is a good idea or not, how NATO will somehow be blown apart because of this. This is the funny thing. Denmark has prevented Greenland from even fishing their waters too much, okay? And the majority of that fish catch, that goes back to Denmark for them to profit off of. So people in Greenland are literally unable to pull the oil out of their own land. They're unable to mine for gold, mine for uranium, mine for there's a whole bunch of other assets that are down there that are very important to making very high quality metals, making high quality electronics, that sort of thing. Lots and lots of important minerals that should already be being extracted in order to facilitate the Greenland economy. Independent of what Denmark could get out of it, they could make lots and lots of money out of that. It's a practically abandoned continent, by the way, because of how hostile the environment is itself. So it's not like you're going to be running off the caribou or anything by drilling. There's nothing up there. It's too cold. Even the penguins don't even hang out in central Greenland. That's where most of this stuff is located. When the glaciers receded, a lot of the stuff that had built up on top from the settling ash from what had been kicked up during the impact there. I'm of the belief that when it all thawed, it was a comet that struck the ice cap and just threw everything up there. But when that happened, it ejected a bunch of stuff into the atmosphere, and over the years, a lot of that built off, melted down. The glaciers moved and scraped a bunch of things, and a lot of that ended up in Greenland. A lot of it ended up in Greenland. Much like my plan here. Now, as you know, I like to take some time in Maynardville to talk about my proposals from the 207 North Star Directive, and this episode is not going to be any different. But play just a few seconds of this opening piece so you get the jive of what I'm talking about here.
Maine is dying, and unless there are immediate and dramatic changes made, that fate is unavoidable. Every year we lose more and more youth to the greater cities along the east coast of our brother states. This is not to say that our ways are weaker than theirs. It is to say that Maine has little to offer young men and women who do not seek careers in woods, water, or wildlife-related industries. As technology jobs become more and more prominent in our modern economy, Maine finds itself completely flat-footed in any attempt to retain these professionals beyond their contractual obligations. The young men of Maine lack a reason to have hope, to believe they can grow here, and the young women of this state fear for the future of their children. A future that grows more vague as our culture and way of life melt into the greater American identity.
I lied, I'm going to play the whole thing.
Maine Republicans have a bold plan to change the fate of this state. This plan puts forward the call to build a Freedom City in eastern Maine. This city's expressed purpose is to receive, process, refine, pour, and shape materials extracted from Greenland.
I'm serious, we can do that here.
That's not all. This new city would be positioned to favor returning the processed materials to Greenland, speeding up the development of their economic infrastructure, meaning the heart of its economy will be forever linked with our new northern brothers when they join our great nation. This is a city of the future, with forward-thinking city planning and the American family at the core of its design philosophy. It falls to us now to shape the future. It will require sacrifice. It will require long hours of debate. It will require the passion and faith of more than 100,000 construction and civil engineering workers.
It's a lot of guys.
But Maine will come out of this stronger than ever before. The urban sprawl of this city will breathe life into eastern Maine and put our great state into the spotlight it has long been denied. Now is the time to be bold.
And that's the truth. That's the plan for the Freedom City that I have proposed here. Let me see if there we go. That works. So the Freedom City is meant to be a city, not just a town where a lot of stuff happens. It's actually supposed to be a place where hundreds of thousands of people actually exist right here on the Eastern Seaboard. Now, the reason why I am committed to this isn't because I want to drag a bunch of people from other places here. It's because I want to make sure that Mainers coming up have a place to go if they don't want to seek careers in woods, water, or wildlife, okay? Our state is dominated by the 3 Ws, and unfortunately, it's cost us a lot when it comes to retaining the youth because, wouldn't you know, not everybody wants to be a warden, not everybody wants to be a logger, and not everybody wants to spend their mornings out on out in the open ocean catching seafood. Not that there's anything wrong with it. I'm not telling you that those are careers that are unworthy or below or anything. I'm simply trying to make sure that of the children that grow up here in Maine who wish to work in something beyond those 3 Ws, it's very hard to find fulfilling work here. And by fulfilling, I mean work that lasts longer than a season. Okay? Not a lot of graphic design firms here. Certainly not a lot of video game development firms here. Certainly not a lot of manufacturing happening here anymore because our good friend the Democrats decided that was just too good for Maine. Okay? Now, this city, as I mentioned, will require 100,000 workers to be here. My plan for this is that those workers, in exchange for regular pay, would receive a home at the end of their duty to the city when they're finished building the city, and a job at the refineries, at the factories, at the brand new economy that they have built with their own 2 hands. Okay, this is important because a lot of young men around the country and as well here in Maine do not know how they are ever going to own property. If you're not aware, most millennials have no hope of ever owning a home, and Zoomers behind us have even less hope. The alphas don't even understand the point of owning a home. That's how bad it's gotten, okay? The kids that are in high school today don't even understand why people want to own a home. All right? Now, this has gotten to the point where we need to make sure that we're telling these people that they have a future in this city. And by guaranteeing having 100,000 people there, the service economy to sustain those people will be attracted here, which again doubles the amount of people that will be present in this city. So already you have 200,000 people right out of the gate, plunked in that city, ready to go. And that's not even accounting for what has to happen on Greenland's end in order to make this pipeline, this route of refining and creating new things work. So this means that we need Greenland on board with the harvesting of their minerals so that we can transform them into girders, asphalt, microchips, all the things that they need to build up their economy in order to sustain these new mining efforts. I'll remind you, they don't have the infrastructure that we do. There's only something like 50,000 of them over there, and they barely have roads that connect their communities, let alone the highways and the different types of bridges needed to sustain the kind of abuse that's going to happen in order to move this amount of material in and out. I'm not sure that they have ports strong enough to handle the materials coming out of there. So that means we've got to have their participation on the other side. But when that's done, you'll have a beautiful, golden Freedom City sitting right on the east coast of Maine, positioned to be the economic powerhouse of not just our state, but also Greenland, permanently linking these two communities to one another as long as they so shall exist. I don't see the downside. I understand that people are concerned with having foreigners brought in and all this other idea of what we're doing with the labor, but I think Mr. Trump has made it pretty clear that we don't want to do that we want to make sure that American workers are doing American work right here at home. And as we've seen with the job sites that have been cleared out because of the illegal immigration employment going on there, these different construction sites, whole neighborhoods under construction, completely vacant thanks to ICE showing up in town. Well, wouldn't you know, the native-born populace, that, like you and me, the native-born populace has been moving in to take over those jobs and finding that there were quite a few shortcuts in these constructions and correcting them and making stronger, more worthy households in the process. So I ask you, you see all this trouble we have with construction. Now, of course, that's happening because we have That's right, people from away who aren't invested in making sure this is the best product it could be, but rather invested in getting paid for their time. And this is why I say that these men who come here to build this city should receive a home at the end of it, not an apartment, a freestanding home. And that home should stay in their family until a family member sells it. Excuse me, that home should be tax free until the family sells it out of the family, right? Until a family member sells that out of their bloodline. So your children, your grandchildren, your great grandchildren, so on and so forth, that property is off limits for property taxes. That's only 100,000 households. Now, I know that sounds like a lot, but I told you this is supposed to be a proper city, not just a town where lots of things happen. Here's the side effect that happens here in Maine. And I have this conversation with people who reply to this thread. It's almost a year old now. They reply to this thread and they say, what about our other cities? Those cities need to be repaired. Exactly. And you're not going to get the authorization, drive, or even the passion necessary to do that without the threat of another city taking their populace away from them. Waterville's done everything they can to cater to Colby College. What happens when a new city shows up that is making waves in getting guys employed in unskilled labor and skilled labor, the trades? Well, there goes all the draw that you had to fancy Waterville now that's been made to cater to Colby that doesn't have anything to do with those professions or very little to do with them. Same thing with Augusta, Disgusta, as most people are calling it now. It's fallen right off the edge thanks to Granny Jan. And it's going to get even worse under Shanny Blowholes, so don't worry, you know. This is the thing, is that we have an opportunity to basically dare these cities to do better in order to hold on to their populace. Otherwise, this city that I'm talking about, Roque City, built over on Roque Bluffs, will suck up every able-bodied and motivated person in those cities so they can come here and build something rather than be stuck with fees, stagnation, all these different directives, all these different requirements, regulations, and the city's own municipal BS that they tag on top of all of it. This is how you beat back this crazed attitude the Democrats have, is that you finally provide something that can produce growth, and not only produce growth in the area of that city, but also produce growth in the cities that are then forced to have to compete with this. Now, I'll tell you, that city, as I'm proposing it, will compete with Boston. So Boston will be put on notice. Portsmouth will be put on notice that if you want to keep your people, you'd best start acting like you want to keep them. 100,000 people have to come from somewhere. A lot of them will come from Maine, but they'll also come from the New England area to come up here and do this. And they may not go home. They may stay right here in Maine with us because they built the city. They get a house out of it. Uh-oh. What are you going to do, Boston? What are you going to do, Portsmouth? What are you going to do, Portland? What are you going to do, Augusta? What are you going to do, Waterville? What are you going to do, Bangor? You going to elect another murderer, Bangor? Is that how you're going to answer that? And see, this is the thing, is that all of my proposals are designed to gut punch this communist effort that's happened here. And what this led to, right? What this led to, this communist effort, is the abuse of the Maine attitude. You know what I'm talking about in the Maine attitude. We're utilitarian people. We are utilitarian people. Utilitarianism means that you will take your shirt off and give it to your neighbor so that your neighbor won't suffer. You will go without for a greater good. This is how we function. Up here in Maine, the cold makes us all equal. Remember that. The cold makes us all equal. You cannot have a worst enemy or a mortal rival up here because in the middle of winter, you might need their help. There's no burning bridges up here. And that's the difference between what we have and what other places have. And I'm not really sure that exists in New Hampshire. Certainly doesn't exist in Massachusetts. And from my experience, it seems to be a wholly unique thing to Maine that we have this attitude that you just can't really hate anybody because you never know if you're going to need their help. But they've abused that. The Democrats have abused that by telling us we have to help these people and help those people, and we need to leave our own to rot. And that's what's happened. Homelessness is through the roof. Crime is through the roof, even though WABI will tell you otherwise. And that's because, right, that's because They are not charging these criminals. And thus the crime rate goes down. Wow, there's just no criminals because they're not being charged. How about that? Interesting, huh? But that's what you're up against, is the abuse of the utilitarian attitude, the utilitarian culture of Mainers, native-born Mainers. We all have this desire in us to help. We all have this desire to improve our state, and then certain groups come in and abuse that desire and turn it into a war between Mainers over the very same concept of compassion. You and I, we don't want to see any of those Somali people hurt. We talk a good game, but we don't want to see them hurt. We would see them relocated back to Somalia because they're not capable of being the upright citizens we need here. If they're going to abuse our institutions, not being very upright, now are they? And people again, well, there's Americans abusing our system. Great, we don't need to add on to it. Thanks for pointing it out. We'll go find them next. Okay, this is the problem, is that when you have a forest fire, it's probably not a good idea to light more forest on fire, right? You kind of don't want the forest on fire. You should do more to mitigate that, to stop the spread of the fire. But the Democrats want you to know that, oh, there's already a fire, so what's the problem if it continues spreading? This is the logic I keep hearing about the Somali scams. Well, American scam. Well, great. Let's stop that. And let's also stop this scam and make sure it can't happen again. I'm with Asmongold that we need to take these families as a whole, like Lego bricks, click them out of the community and flick them back to Somalia. That's your problem. You couldn't appreciate being taken care of here. And they were taken care of. They were not faced with the same challenges that you and I are. And you know this. And that wasn't good enough. They still had to pry more out of us and abuse that which they pried from us. So that's the reality that we're facing on this end. Now, I did want to get into explaining what happened with Venezuela and why it's important to us up here in Maine. And believe it or not, it does have a little bit to do with this city. So this is Vince Langman. This is he's posted a video from a gentleman called Mr. Grajales. I think that's what it is. Grajales. I think I've pronounced that right. And this man's going to explain what is going on down in Venezuela without the CNN filter.
This is a message for my American friends watching the news today in English. There is a serious inaccuracy in the coverage.
Oops.
Venezuela is not undergoing a regime change. Venezuela already has a democratically elected president, Edmundo González. He is the president. Nicolás Maduro is not the president. He never was. He stole the last election and led a criminal organization linked to terrorism and drug trafficking, El Cartel de los Soles. And today, thanks to the vision and courage of the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, the decisive leadership of the President Donald Trump, and the actions of Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, the United States has finally recognized a fundamental truth. Protecting our hemisphere from terrorism, drug cartels, and authoritarian ideologies is a matter of national security for the United States.
Right. And he's absolutely right about this. Now, what's important about Venezuela and why everyone's sort of up in arms over the situation is because Venezuela sits on the largest oil reserves on the planet. Bigger than Saudi Arabia's, okay? That's a pretty big deal. And Maduro was about to sign all that into BRICS. The effort to break the American dollar started by Russia and China, okay? Saudi Arabia is already part of that, okay? Now, if we want to be serious about this, it's all fun and games to say, oh, yes, we've liberated the Venezuelan people from the horror of Maduro, okay? Now, this post right here from Aristotle Investments explains just how important this is. Now, I'm not sure where this video is from or this scene is from. I think it's Quantico, but I could be wrong. You have to let me know down in the comments if you recognize this TV show. But this pretty much sums up why Venezuela is important and why we're kind of glossing over the other big bads that are named here.
What would you assume is the most major threat on the world stage? Anybody, just call it out. You don't have to raise your hand.
Definitely Russia.
Definitely Russia. That's confident. I like it. Who says Russia? Anybody agree with her? Hands? Okay, great. Who else?
China.
Stop yelling at me, but China is a good answer. Anybody? Who else? China?
North Korea?
North Korea. Any North Korea takers? And Venezuela? Anybody? Nope. Oh, yeah. One guy in the back. A little worried about Venezuela. Everybody's cool with Venezuela? No threat? Okay. Let me ask you this. Which one of these places can claim to have the largest oil deposit on the planet?
This is very good information, by the way. It's presented quite dramatically, but it's very good.
More than Saudi? More than Iran? Wow. Okay, what about things like gold? More than all the mines in Africa combined?
Yeah, that's the other thing is Venezuela has more gold than all the mines in Africa, which again negates China's attempt rather to go in and try to take over Africa as an imperialist force.
The fact is that Venezuela is arguably the single greatest resource of oil and minerals on the planet. So, why is this country in the midst of one of the greatest humanitarian crises in modern history?
Now, this goes on to explain a bunch of stuff in their world, but I'm going to explain to you what happened here. So Maduro ended up shrinking the economy by 80% by killing off most of the American investment that was happening there. 80%. I don't know how to calculate that for us, really, because even the Great Depression didn't recede our economy that far. 80%. He shrank that economy down to 20% of what it was when he took office. In 10 years. That's hell. That's hell. Your GameStops are gone. Your cute little cafes that sell nickety knacks, those are gone. Your neat little restaurants, those are gone. It is just pure hell, survival, eating dogs, just not cool. So when you see these people that are weeping over the news of Maduro being cast away from their country, and finally they are not having to deal with even his regime now because they surrendered about 20 hours after Maduro was captured. But what you see is these people realizing that there's hope again after they'd given it up. After they had given it up, you see Venezuelans around the world getting news of this and weeping and talking about going home. This is good. We have a lot of Venezuelans that were displaced because of Maduro's stupidity all the way up here in the USA, and they litter quite a bit of middle America as well. So it's good to have them go back to their country because guess what? Under the American leadership that we've put in place here, now again, this previous gentleman mentioned Gonzalez as the winner here. I believe he's most likely going to be the winner, and we install him, but you know what I mean, make his victory legitimate over Maduro's theft of it, right? So this means that this, for Maine, right, that's where our heating oil was coming from. You remember this? We had all these Venezuelan contracts to get our heating oil. Well, guess what? As soon as those refineries that Maduro stripped of American ownership are back up and running again, and they're going to need some time because, wouldn't you know, Maduro left them to rot, and those type of facilities don't take being shut down for very long. You know, they tend to have some trouble being shut down for a long period of time. So we'll have to do some upgrades and get everything back running again. But once it is, our heating oil will go down again in a time when we really need that to happen. Gasoline has already gone down as Trump accepted the shipment of close to 50 million barrels of oil. Now, that's not a lot when you get into how much the U.S. uses per day. We use 20 million barrels a day, but that's more than just the gasoline in your car. That's also to make plastic toys and all sorts of other things that are made out of petroleum, raw petroleum. So, already we're seeing the benefits of Venezuela being decommunisted, I guess, if you put it that way. Maduro being removed from power means that we up here in Maine will start seeing our heating oil prices go down, and perhaps we'll see also the cost of certain electronics go down as well. We may even get lucky enough to become a place that starts producing these types of electronics here. I'll talk about that, another proposal of mine in another episode. We may get lucky enough to produce these types of electronics up here in Maine based on what's extracted from our peaceful trade with Venezuela. And so that's what the truth of Maduro is. That's why the Democrats are mad, because this means that the economy can get rolling again, and it'll get rolling under Trump, which means it'll make it even harder for them to make the case that, well, Trump's ruined everything. You can't afford anything, yada, yada, yada. Well, guess what? That's already being turned on its head. This is going to make their fight in the midterms much more difficult than it ever could have been had they just kept their mouths shut and kept fighting for unions, as opposed to importing all of these people and insisting we go back to the dark age. That's right. That's what you're dealing with, are these eco-terrorists that think it's a great idea to live in mud huts in the middle of the woods. Everyone should live in a yurt or something like that. I'm not a yurt guy. I don't know about you, but the yurt doesn't really turn me on. I'm not really into a canvas house. Kind of like my wood and my four walls and, not living in a tent. Again, if you live in a yurt, good for you. Congratulations. But I don't think that ought to be the standard for everybody. It may be fantastic living, but I don't think it ought to be standard living for everyone. Unlike the Democrats that believe that everything you do, including breathing now, is hurting the environment. The precious environment, by the way. So precious. Certainly didn't survive several asteroid strikes, volcano explosions, and falling over off of its axis a couple of times. Certainly that didn't happen, but it's the SUVs and all the plane travel you're doing that's causing all of this, surely. But back at the plot, I did want to bring your attention back to good old Maine again. We do have some updates about immigration. This will probably be the big story of the night as it continues to unfold. I'm sorry to be the one to bring your attention to this, but we have immigration problems here, and maybe also a diabetes problem. Maybe. So it says here from the Maine Wire, trusted news source here in the good old state of Maine, under occupation, by the way. Occupied Maine, if you will. The Maine Wire, if you're not following them, make sure you are, all right? Now, that's at the Maine Wire. Very simple to find out there. And you know what? You might get lucky and they'll follow you back. Who knows? But it says right here, head of Portland Public Schools, Sarah Lentz, announces that all staff will receive training to obstruct and resist federal immigration officials. And in her case, all she has to do is stand in the doorway. Not much is getting past her, probably not even any air the way that she's fit. But I think she's sitting down too, I hope anyway. Good golly. But that's what you're dealing with. You're dealing with the head of the public schools down in Portland vowing to create problems for law enforcement. That's how desperate these people are to create and maintain their slave class. Now, you and I need to come to terms with this, okay? A lot of people don't want to accept that that's what's happened here. That these people aren't just here to be voters. That they are, in fact, here to replace the workforce. I had to clear my throat there. I got a little bit of fuzzy. Hold on. A little bit of fuzzy. Gotta love it. You're trapped inside, a little bit of dust particle comes flying in your throat. All of a sudden, you can't breathe anymore. But Sarah is continuing on the problem that we're having here is that the left is becoming ever more aggressive with their desire to hold on to their slave class. Now, again, this is a hostage group of people, okay? Feel how you will about the invaders, but they are held hostage by the Democrats. Now, simply how this works is, unless they do as the Democrats say, and right now, it's just vote for them, okay? But as Maine continues to lose its population, pretty soon it's going to be, no, voting was fine, but now it's a requirement to hold on to your semi-citizenship for you to go and do 200 public work hours, right? So you have to go out in a year, you have to perform as a new Mainer, regardless of your immigration status. You have to go and perform 200 hours of community service, right? Public community service. Now, that'll evolve again as the native-born workforce continues to diminish, the Democrats requiring these people to simply volunteer for work. Now, we've seen this effect down in Lewiston, where the presence of these people have stagnated meat packer wages for close to 10 years now. For almost 10 years, meat packers have only saw an increase in their salary of almost 25 cents now, not even 50 cents in their wages, thanks to these people being present and driving down the cost of labor. Because guess what? These people from away are happy to have $5 an hour because it's $5 more than they were ever able to earn back home. That $5 also comes with free housing from the government that's better than anything they had back home. Comes with a car, comes with education, comes with healthcare, comes with access to all the neat and fancy things they've only ever seen on YouTube videos, wherever they could get connection in a country that doesn't have regular electricity. As I said, everybody over there has a smartphone, and I can't figure out how that works, but maybe we're dropping them from the sky. I don't know. Maybe we're doing a Dumbo drop of iPhones. I don't know what's going on. But what's happened is that these people are being brought in here to be a slave class. And that's just how the Democrats will use them as the native-born workforce leaves or dies out. And that's why these people are fighting so hard to hold on to these people. It's not just because they're votes, but because in 5 to 10 years, they are going to have to force these people to do the labor that you and I aren't alive or around to do anymore. And they've convinced themselves that this is the best route forward, to bring in people that are totally hostage to the situation. Because guess what? You don't want to go work in the mines? Going back to Somalia. And that's just what they'll do. They will hold them. They're already holding them hostage about the deportation thing. You either vote the way we want or we get rid of you. Either vote the way we want or we cut off your funding. That's why Mohammed showed up there at the top of the show to let everybody know on the Democrat side that they're reevaluating their vote for the Democrats, because he knows that's what they care about most right now. Pretty soon, it'll be, we're not going to go to the mines on Monday. Okay? Not that Maine's going to suddenly pick up mining, but that's what they're going to, I hope we do, but not for slave labor anyway. But you're not going to see these people left to be completely dependent on the state for much longer. Our population is falling like a rock. And so that's why people like Sarah Lentz are acting so extreme, is because they believe this is the only way to keep Maine going, is to insert a bunch of people in, because we're all just numbers on a spreadsheet. We're all just numbers on a spreadsheet. We don't have lives, histories, legacies, nothing like that. We're just numbers to these people, and they need numbers in order to maintain an economy. That's why you see people on the left and people on the right uniting on the idea of continuing to bring in these random people from around the world, because they don't believe that the native population can handle the workload. And that's what you're up against on that front. But we'll move on into, like I said, the big story tonight. This is happening over in Minneapolis. Now, Minneapolis is a long way away from Maine. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because this will most likely end up spilling over here into Maine, because of what good old Tim Walz has decided to challenge the rest of the country to. Okay, so let's take a listen. Okay, so this woman has obstructed traffic. She refuses to move. ICE agents have had to go up onto the curb in order to get around her, up into the snowbank in order to get around her. And now they are disembarking their vehicles, taking their lives into their own hands doing this, by the way, and approaching her vehicle to most likely take her into custody, is what it appears to be. Now, the woman taking the video here is, of course, agitated. The wording going around, the rumor going around, is that this woman who is taking the video was in the SUV moments before, but disembarked when the driver parked in the middle of the road in order to obstruct the ICE agents. Now, what you don't see are ICE agents departing from this vehicle right here. We have a secondary angle. What you don't see are ICE agents departing from this vehicle here and crossing to the front of her SUV, but you're about to see them. See, so we'll back it up just a little bit here, and you can see that there's a fella right over here at the edge of this man's hat. There's a fella, and you can see him standing right there, and he's in direct path of this machine. This machine is sitting right around the road, and she does not want to be arrested by these ICE agents who are reaching through the window. Now, what you don't know is she was chiding them just moments before with her arm out the window, calling them all sorts of names and insisting that she wasn't going to move. Now, they told her to get out of the vehicle, and she is now attempting to resist and run away, which, as you know, with any law enforcement, is not a good idea.
No! Shame!
And so you heard this gunshot, right? And this SUV is now pulling away, right?
Shame! Oh my fucking god! What the fuck? What the fuck? You just fucking, what the fuck did you do? You are fucking criminals!
So this is the first reaction these people have, is to start screaming criminal, not to go check on the accident that has just unfolded. Just so you understand where the priorities are, is that any way to smear ICE is the priority. It doesn't matter if someone's dead or if they've led to more deaths. We have to make sure that ICE is smeared. So just so you understand, these are not bleeding hearts. These are people here to create agitation and to provoke some type of incident which is just unfolded, and then to continue to keep hell rolling as an emergency situation has occurred. That's all happened in just these 34 seconds. That's how these people operate. That's what we're up against. We're up against people that don't care if their friend just got eliminated, right? They don't care if their friend just got force exited from the Minecraft server, all right? They care about making sure there's a political statement about it.
You're fucking criminals! What the?
Rather than rushing to the scene of the accident to find out what has happened, no. Rather than taking a moment to try and assess what has happened, it is immediately running into making sure that this is a political incident so that it can be spread all over social media and led to what is unfolding right now.
What the fuck? What the fuck? What the actual fuck? You are fucking insane!
Yeah, right? A woman tries to run over a guy. How dare he not get run over? What a criminal, that guy. How dare he not get run over by some crazy soccer mom that just listens to people on YouTube and TikTok scream and holler about things that are vastly out of their control.
What did you do? You! Shame! 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 Shame!
That's it. They're not trying to check on this accident. They're not trying to find out if anybody was in those cars that were struck. They're just trying to make it harder for the ICE agents to find out what's happened and maybe help somebody who's in danger. Now, we know now that this woman died immediately after those gunshots were unleashed upon her, after she, again, tried to run over an ICE agent in an attempt to avoid arrest, which was entirely her fault.
Shame! Shame! Shame!
That's it. That's all they have. They just stand there and scream shame. So in an emergency situation, you see someone screaming shame, just leave them to do what they need to do to get that out of their system. Maybe call mental health services so they can be assessed, because someone, again, this is a scene of a emergency situation now. Okay? Gunshots have been fired, and the first thing that these idiots think to do is to get in the middle of the road and start screaming shame at people who are trying to assess just what has happened. Okay? This is what you're dealing with. The genius of the left, okay? Now we have a secondary view of what happened here. So just, again, brace yourself. What you're about to see is the aftermath of all of this as well. There's no blood to speak of, but it is quite abrupt what happens. So again, as you can see right down here in this lower edge right here, you see the silver SUV. The purple one is about to emerge from there. But right now, you see her hitting the cop right here. This is the cop being struck. I believe this is an ICE agent, not a local police officer. So this is an ICE agent being struck by that Honda Pilot. And he has drawn his firearm to tell her to stop. And now he has to fire because she has injured him. Now, apparently he's in the hospital after this, and as he probably would end up being at the rate of collision that she hit him with, the rate of speed of collision. Again, we'll roll that back because it's a little quick. And she did. She ran over his foot and probably bent his knee backwards, tearing tendons. Now, again, this was an entirely avoidable situation. This woman not only decided to try and evade capture, but also put herself in a situation where she became the target of ICE by inhibiting their ability to carry out their mission for no other reason than she was told on a TikTok or read in a Facebook post that this is bad. This is bad man behavior. So here she goes. Now, she is incapacitated at this point, most likely unconscious or completely not with us anymore. And so as you can see, she struck parked vehicles there. Now, thank God there was nobody in there. There weren't any animals that were waiting on their owner inside or anything like that. These appear to be vehicles that belong to homeowners in the neighborhood that were inside for whatever reason. Thankfully, inside, not hanging around their vehicles or in them. And as you can hear, she is still on the pedal, and it would appear that the body has gone limp and thus, down on the accelerator. Now, again, ICE officers and police are the first on the scene, not the people screaming their heads off trying to say, oh, you're a criminal, you're shame, shame, shame. Because again, guess who's useless in an emergency situation? A Democrat. Now, of course, the officer shuts off the vehicle and steps back so that another officer can come in and take a look at what's happened. So it would appear to be that these are the officers from the silver vehicle over here. But again, I'll run it back just in case you missed it. Boom, she hits him right there. Right there. She hit him and he bounced off the headlight and front bumper around the fender, and she's over his foot right here. I don't know. She may have dislocated his hip with that too. I don't know. You don't get hit by a car and just go, oh, well, that tickled. No, you don't do that. You don't get hit by a car is a deadly weapon. A few people. Do you remember that man who thought it was a great idea to drive a Home Depot rented truck down the sidewalk in New York? We never found out what drove him to do that. Oh, no. That's sarcasm, by the way. But when you point a vehicle at someone and drive it at them, that is attempted murder. There is no way around that, okay? When you deliberately aim a vehicle at someone and push the gas to go at them, you are attempting to murder them. There's no law that says a police officer must be halfway under a vehicle before he can defend his life. No law anywhere that says that. Now, our Democrat friends thought it would be a really great idea to go out and shoot their mouths off. And in particular, the king of the Democrats right now, Mr. Tim Walz. I don't care if you don't like it. Tim Walz is the king of the Democrats. Barack Obama can move over. There's a new crown king of dummies. So this is Tim giving a interview on the chaos that's unfolding. We'll take a look at that just as soon as he's done barking his head off here. But this is Tim commentating on this, and he has some pretty colorful things to say. The reporter is quoting President Trump's statement about this, that there were crazed leftists that have incited all of this, and, the quote from Truth Social, which I'm sure you've probably already seen.
Look, and I understand the uniqueness of this moment in this week, following this week, seeing what's happening in the backdrop of a show hearing in D.C. My job is to govern, and my job is to see what the facts are.
See how the facts can be twisted. Let's be straight about that, King of the Democrats.
This happened a couple of hours ago, and we're already pitting American against American. All of you saw a video in your eyes. We have a chaotic situation caused by the largest deployment in American history of federal agents.
No, Tim, we have the chaos caused because your side continues to paint that as an authoritarian method rather than a law enforcement action. Laws that Barack Obama the false god of the left, has also committed under his tenure as Lord High Mucky Muck of Washington, D.C.
Into a community with no communication to locals. We had a chaotic situation where an individual is in their car, shot and killed. And so.
And again, he paints this as though just an ICE agent walked up and popped somebody, not explaining that this woman willfully put herself between these men and their duty and then tried to kill one of them when they attempted to extract her from breaking the law as a result of breaking the law, okay? This is what Tim Waltz doesn't want to discuss with us. He wants to paint this up as some ICE agent went around and popped some lady in the head because of what he has to say next.
Look, I want to be very cautious here because Donald Trump will make this about me. He will make this about politics. This is about public safety, and this is about normalcy. To Americans who are watching this, if you're in Portland or you're in LA or you're in Chicago or you're wherever they're coming next, stand with us. Stand with us against this.
So he has called the Democrats in major cities to start causing trouble. Because standing with them doesn't mean going out and hashtagging. Standing with them means going out and doing, that's right, the Floyd riots. That's right. You'll never guess what's already unfolding in the neighborhood where this took place. Just after all this stuff started going down, well, guess what? We had this scene unfold.
Okay, it looks like they are throwing snowballs as the officers are leaving. So again, I believe it was a state patrol, and we did see some MPD officers who were leaving that scene. Hennepin County telling us that their sheriff's deputies have not been on that scene, but it looks like as officers are leaving the scene, just having some protesters or bystanders, agitators, throwing some snowballs at them as they leave. We saw this earlier.
We did.
Well.
Yep, we saw this exact thing earlier, and this was targeted toward ICE agents at that particular time. But now, as you mentioned, this is MPD, BCA was on scene, the sheriff's department as well. And as this street is opening up here, you can see a lot of these protesters, these people in the community responding to this. And now we're having an aerial view here of what we have been seeing. What we did see earlier, and now it's once again, you can see them throwing some of those snowballs at those vehicles.
Now it's snowballs, but how long until it's rocks? And I have a feeling that's already happening now that the sun has gone down over there in Minnesota as well as here. And it's not too long before that starts to boil over, as I said in the title of this. It's not too long until that starts to boil over into, again, the Floyd riots, where we're just rioting for the sake of rioting because somebody somewhere had a bad time. Now, again, you can feel however you like about that, but we all know what happened with Mr. Floyd. His passing, whether you agree with the coroner's report or not, kicked off a nationwide riot spree that tore apart, burned a great deal of our cities, not to the ground, but burned some very high-priced real estate, by the way, that belonged to small businesses, destroyed, looted, and killed a bunch of police, right? Now, what do you want to bet that that's starting up again? In the last episode, I said something bad was going to happen because all this fraud was leading back to the Democrats and exclusively to the Democrats. Well, here it is. And this is what's going to happen. The Somalis are going to find their way to the street. The Venezuelan gangs are going to find... Remember the Venezuelans over in Colorado knocking over apartments for rent? Well, I can't imagine they didn't spread from there over into Minnesota, of course. I can't imagine they're not in Minnesota already doing that. So guess who's going to be out on the streets too? And then, of course, those folks that thought it was a great idea to go around burning driverless cars in California earlier this year, those folks are going to end up front and center for all of this. And my fear is from the bottom of my heart that we're going to end up staring down the barrel of a gun here, figuratively, is that there's a lot of stress. A lot more stress than there was during the Floyd riots, okay? A lot of people were during the BLM riots and whatnot. They were distracted by COVID. They had responsibilities like COVID and things like that. Don't have that now. The lockdowns aren't in place. And so I not that I don't trust our side to stay above board, but all it's going to take is one guy on the roof popping off people to start something that can't be stopped. Whether that guy's popping off that team or the other team, it's going to start something that can't be stopped. Our enemies know that. Our enemies know that. And we have some pretty angry enemies at the moment. China feels pretty embarrassed over Maduro. I don't think it's impossible for them to activate a sleeper to go out and cause trouble in Minneapolis tonight. Okay? I'm not telling you that a civil war is on the way. I don't believe that that's going to happen tonight. But what's going to happen is they're going to do their very best to push Trump toward an insurrection. They're going to do their very best to make sure that we have a using the Insurrection Act, rather, push him toward using the Insurrection Act, because, in my belief, that authorizes the Democrats to then take up arms against the president, and it foils our ability to have an actual election in November. They started floating this, can we have elections during COVID because of how unsafe it is for people? They started floating this back in COVID. So this would be a rule that they have, that wherever the fighting is happening, you can't vote. Okay? They may shut off the entire national election because of it. This causes the seats that the Democrats are probably going to lose to freeze for the duration of however long they have to be suspended in order to protect the public from being vulnerable to attack. And this doesn't have to be sustained warfare, guys. This doesn't have to be trench warfare, battlefront war. No. Skirmishes in major populations will cause this. 200 or 300 guys going around causing trouble is going to trigger this problem. And they don't have to stay sustained with it. But these skirmishes that require the National Guard, that require the Marines coming in and dealing with them, that's going to raise the public awareness about the unsafe nature of having everybody lined up out front of a building waiting to cast their vote, which, again, the people that are doing the naughty stuff are obviously trying to make sure it doesn't happen. And that's what the ultimate goal is to make sure that the United States is in too much disarray to project power. Okay? Because it's not going to be a quick little thing. Like I said, these skirmishes will continue for many years on because there's largely nothing you can do about it. You can impress upon people to report what they see, but again, we had to deal with that in Afghanistan. We had to deal with that in Vietnam. The guerrilla-style warfare is just something that is very difficult to combat because it just tends to not even have a central objective. It's a bunch of separate groups that are all out doing their own thing, and they create enough chaos together that, ta-da, you have to suspend the election. And that's truthfully what I believe this whole thing is about. It's about forcing Trump to use the Insurrection Act in order to give Democrats the license to raise arms against him. Because you can't go around saying the man's Hitler, and then when martial law shows up, just shrug it off. Okay? There's the pathway between those two things just doesn't work. These people, like Tim Walz, would have to go out and like be in a mile deep bunker to protect themselves from their own party, sometimes their own kids. They spent so much time beating this Hitler drum that as soon as martial law comes through, they have to raise arms against the president. And that's truthfully what I think this is. Now, guess who gets the benefit from that? China and Russia, because we're no longer able to keep our focus on battlefronts that potentially could evolve out of the Taiwan question and and again, continuing with Russia's push against Ukraine that for whatever reason has Europe worried. But it's one of those things where like little crybaby Europe's got to make so much of a mess of itself for no reason whatsoever. This eastern line of defense that's nowhere near Ukraine, by the way, just useless. But anyway, instead, what we're stuck with here is that we are witnessing probably the early embers of a sustained civil unrest. Because guess what good old Tim Walz couldn't help himself from saying at that very same press conference?
Well, I said this yesterday. We've never been at war with our federal government. I think in this case that the National Guard is their main mission. They have a dual mission.
We've never been at war with our federal government. Now, why would you say such a thing like that? What's that have to do with anything, Tim? And that's where we find ourselves at the moment with all of this. And what I want to stress about it is that Jan has already said that she'll defend Maduro. Janet Mills already said that she's going to defend Maduro, right? She's volunteered to be the legal whatever for Maduro, whatever. Which means she's not going to be too far behind walls with this call for action in the streets. And they know exactly where this is going to lead. As soon as any type of confrontation boils over, they're going to maximize it into the right being some kind of authoritarian mess. Meanwhile, the left has been instructed that there are no rules, just like last time. Antifa will be rolled out. Probably these new groups that we've managed to pick up since 2020 that came from the southern border, they'll be here too. Lest we forget that man who was a terrorist at the border that said, "You will know my name." Remember that guy? Yeah. He's not out there still, but his friends certainly are. And the people he was sent to instruct certainly are out there. And I'll remind you, down in Houston, the Chinese embassy burned a crap ton of fake licenses and a bunch of paperwork and potentially a human body. So you want to bet that they're probably busy meddling with stuff too, and they're just waiting for stuff to get a little hairy to make it even worse? So what I want to tell you, if you're a Mainer living in the cities, and our cities are small, don't worry, but if you are a Mainer living in the cities, please make sure that your family is warm, that your family is locked in safe, make sure that you have all the locks locked, and that you keep something that goes boom close enough to make it go boom when you need it to. I'm not telling you to just randomly pop off people outside your window. That's not very safe. But I'm telling you, if they come into your home, you're not going to have a choice. Because they're being told that this is it, that they're up against Nazis, that they're going to stop, even though they hate the Jewish people as well. It's such a bizarre cognitive dissonance with the left. We hate the Jewish people, but we also hate the Nazis. Why? What? How'd that happen? But here we are, nevertheless. You have the most confused, angry individuals that have been pointed at you and me, right? And they're being told that there are no rules because we're Nazis, we're not human. So remember that, okay? These people aren't going to have mercy. Not this time. They saw what happened when they let up with George Floyd. We had this happen right here in dumb old Belfast, okay? This is the kicker, all right? You can go look this up if you want to. What ended up happening was the mayor's son organized the BLM protest that boiled over into a riot where they couldn't even tip over one police car together. Okay? But this is who you're dealing with. People who want to cause violence. People who want to create chaos. People who want to drag that into your communities where it doesn't exist and make it front and center. Now, again, you would think that the mayor's son, of all people, would have the power to address the systematic racism in Belfast, Maine. I've never witnessed it. I've been here since I was 10 years old, 8 years old. And I haven't witnessed it. Are we talking about systematic racism where people are just not hanging out with black people? I didn't realize that was racism, where people just are like, "Hey, you're black, come on over to my house." Wouldn't that be a little weird? I think that would be a little weird, right? To just stop a random black person and be like, "Hey, because of your skin color, do you want to hang out?" Doesn't that seem a little counterintuitive? I think it does. I think it seems a little off, right? But nevertheless, what I'm trying to explain is that this is the part of the storm where things get real rocky before it starts to smooth out again. Now, we all understand that some type of confrontation had to happen with the left where they finally got their shit shoved in. Unfortunately, it's not going to happen 100 years from now. It's not going to happen 50 or 20 or 10 or 5. It appears as though the left can't keep themselves together long enough to even put up a fight, but they are very happy to start creating chaos nevertheless. I don't believe we're in the last days of the Republic, but I do believe that these times are going to test our willingness to continue participating in a democratic process. The democratic process in that you're electing people into a representative democracy. I do think that that is going to test our willingness to continue. We are very stratified as a people. And that's why it's important up here in Maine to coalesce around our culture, to coalesce around our history, to coalesce around our heritage. Because above all, it is important to know where we have been so we know where we're going, unlike the rest of the people that are out in the streets tonight that cause trouble. We know where we're going. There's a destiny for Maine, a destiny for you, and a destiny for me. And it's all right here in the Polar Star State. Pine Tree State sounds fun. It sounds kind of kitschy, kind of like a camping ground. Nah, Polar Star is what we were called before Alaska came into the fold. I'd like to go back to being the Polar Star State. We show the way. We're the first ones to greet the sunrise. Remember that. On January 1st, when the sun peeked over the edge of the eastern horizon, those first rays of sun slammed into the side of Mount Katahdin. That's us. We're the first to greet the day. And we need to be there for the rest of the country to light the way to a better world, to that shining city on the hill. And that's what I leave you with, even though I stammered through it a bit. But again, stay safe and good luck out there. All right, guys? Good luck out there and God bless.